Friends, welcome to our COVID-19 vaccine webinar, where we will answer your questions by Dr. Dengani and myself and my wife. Uh, First, this content that we are presenting here reflects our own opinion and interpretation of available scientific data that we have to date. It is not sponsored by Moderna, Mercy Medical Group, or Dignity Health Foundation. Please always refer to your primary care physician for advice related to your personal situation. Today, we will answer the top 10 questions about the vaccines. If you like this video, please share with friends and family. If you have any questions, feel free to ask the questions in the comment section of the YouTube video, and then we will try to answer them as soon as possible. Thank you and enjoy the video.
Now that this Pfizer vaccine is available, can you please explain what is mRNA technology?
Sure. Hello, friends. So during last 20 years, many scientists have studied this new technology called messenger RNA. It was mainly studied for cancer at that time, but now that we have a need for COVID-19 vaccine, our scientists have created this vaccine very quickly, adapting the same study. So in this technology, genetic instructions are coded and they are sent to our cells. According to those instructions, which is kind of like a software instructions, our cells, they create a small part of actual virus. In coronavirus, all of you know that there are spikes. So these genetic instructions are telling our cells to create or to manufacture a spike, which is actually a protein. So these genetic instructions are enclosed in a lipid shell, which is the part of the vaccine. So once this vaccine is introduced in the muscles, in your hand, or anywhere in the body, so these instructions are read by the cells and they start creating the spike of the coronavirus. After they create it, the spike are sent into the bloodstream. Now our body has a natural immune system. So as soon as they notice some foreign object like this spike, they start fighting with this part of the virus. They multiply many times and they create antibodies to fight the spike. And these antibodies, they also multiply so many times and they grow around the spike and they destroy the spike. Now these antibodies are, they stay in the blood for a long time. We don't have enough data to find out exactly how long these antibodies will stay in our bloodstream. But scientists believe that with the current available data, they stay in our blood for 9 to 12 months. Now the genetic instruction, those are introduced through messenger RNA in our body. And they actually do not enter into the nucleus of the cell. Now our DNAs are inside the nucleus. So these instructions, they do not alter our DNA structure. So nobody should really worry that, oh, these genetic instructions are going to change our genome. It doesn't happen that way. So I highly recommend that not to worry. Now these spikes, they are actually cellular debris, and then they get discarded once antibodies get rid of the spike. Our immune system make sure that there is no virus, the COVID-19 virus in our body, and they make sure that if new virus gets introduced, let's say after you take vaccine and after 2-3 months, if the virus gets inside your body, these antibodies will make sure they get destroyed and they protect you. Now, this protection is very, very important because this COVID-19 virus is very, very smart, very shrewd virus. What it does, it has so many spikes. Once they get into our body, those spikes, they convert into like a claws, and they keep all the organs, they attack on the organs, and they make sure those organs cannot move. So if they attack on the lungs first, and people get breathing problem because the lung cannot freely move. Then they attack on the heart and the kidney and so on. One by one, all these organs they get rigid because these claws don't allow them to move freely. And all this action is so painful. Nobody really should go through it. It's a very painful disease. People wish they can die, but they don't want to go through this painful experience. And because of this, I highly recommend, please take the vaccine whenever it is available in your age group, and do not worry about DNA alteration, and stay safe. Even after taking the vaccine, please make sure to keep the social distancing, wear the mask with filter, and wash your hands frequently. And very soon we will know how long this vaccine will be effective. It is effective 95%, but the length, we do not know whether we need to take this vaccine every 1 year or every 2 years. Once we have enough data, we will find out. And we should salute to all our scientists. Stay healthy and have a nice day.
I'm your host, Satish Shah. I'm a vaccine champion and a volunteer for Moderna's vaccine trial. Welcome to our first episode of Vaccine 101. And with us, we have Dr. Dingani. I will ask Dr. Dingani to introduce himself.
Hi everyone, my name is Darshan Dingani. I'm one of the pulmonary critical care physicians with Dignity Health Foundation in Sacramento. And I take care of this sickest of the sick COVID-19 patients on a daily basis in our ICU. And I wanted to create this video with Mr. Satish Pai, and with my hope is that with the help of this video, I will try to answer some of the common questions and address some of the concerns that people may have regarding COVID-19 vaccines, with the hope that I can convince most of you to take these vaccines as soon as possible. And it is very exciting that COVID-19 vaccines are finally around the corner and we can see light at the end of the tunnel. And I strongly encourage and urge people to get vaccinated as soon as possible. So together with the vaccines and other public health measures such as wearing masks and social distancing, I'm hopeful that we can put an end to the pandemic and get back to our original lives as soon as possible.
Right, that's very good. And our goal in this video, like you said, is to educate everyone about the vaccine so that there are no myths or there are no misinformation. So our readers and viewers have sent in their questions, and I'll start with the first question. Which vaccines are available now?
So there are a variety of COVID-19 vaccines being developed around the world. According to WHO, as of November 12th, I believe there were 48 vaccines in clinical trials and 164 candidate vaccines in preclinical evaluations. And all of those vaccines share one thing in common, which is that they all stimulate a primary immune response. So that our body can develop memory B cells and T cells against this SARS-CoV-2 virus. So the development of immune response by these vaccines is what will protect the person against subsequent COVID-19 infection. And as we know, some of the vaccine candidates have already completed their phase 3 clinical trials, such as Moderna and Pfizer. And some of the vaccine candidates are still in their phase 3 clinical trials. So Pfizer and Moderna, they are both mRNA vaccines. And the data just got published, and we even have a peer-reviewed journal article for Pfizer vaccine safety, which shows that it demonstrated excellent safety profile and effectiveness up to 95%, which is very impressive. Pfizer just received FDA approval last week, and it is already being administered in some of the healthcare facilities, especially to the high-risk population. And Moderna is up for FDA approval meeting, I believe, tomorrow. And it is expected to be approved. And once approved, it will be shipped and distributed to all the healthcare facilities across all the 50 states of US. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we will have enough vaccine doses to vaccinate at least top priority phase 1A group. So besides Pfizer and Moderna, there are other vaccine candidates which are also being evaluated in phase 3 clinical trials. Those include Oxford or AstraZeneca, J&J or Johnson & Johnson, and Novavax, among others. So both Oxford and AstraZeneca and J&J, they are all adenovirus vector-based vaccines, which are different from mRNA vaccines in a way that they use live attenuated virus, which is supposed to be harmless, but it can still induce or stimulate the body to develop immune response. And some of these this kind of vaccine examples are vaccines for Ebola, Zika, or dengue. The other vaccine known as the Novavax, it uses virus surface proteins or subunits, which are similar to hepatitis B vaccines or shingle vaccines. So these are different type of vaccines that we have, and each vaccine has unique advantage and disadvantage, and safety profile is pretty much 90-95% range for those who are already available for administration.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so Dr. Darshan, where do we go and get vaccinated?
So once the vaccines have been shipped to all 50 states across the country, which I think is already has happened, they would be distributed locally by the state to the facilities which are equipped with storing these vaccines at appropriate temperature. For example, Pfizer vaccines, then it needs to be stored at -70 degrees centigrade, and Moderna vaccine requires -20 degree temperature for storage. So these facilities may include hospitals, pharmacies such as Walgreens, CVS, some outpatient clinics, etc., depending on whether they have these ultra freezing storage capabilities. And once they are at this location, then further guidance and instructions will be given to the public as to which facilities they can go and which priority group will be vaccinated first.
How many shots of the vaccine are required?
So it depends on which vaccine we are talking about. So for example, Pfizer and Moderna vaccines require 2 doses. And for Pfizer, those 2 doses are administered 21 days apart. For Moderna, it is actually 28 days apart. So the point is that with the first dose, body generates a primary immune response, which is generally slow and weak. It takes time to get time for the body to develop the immune response. The second dose is administered after 21 days on an average for Pfizer and 28 days for Moderna. And with the second dose, it will boost the immunity by developing secondary immune response, which is supposed to be stronger and quicker than the primary immune response, because a lot of memory B cells and T cells are rapidly activated, resulting in higher antibody concentrations, which can eliminate the virus very quickly, reduce the symptoms and severity of COVID-19 infection. So J&J or Johnson & Johnson requires only one dose, while AstraZeneca, Oxford, they all require 2 doses, 20 days apart. So it depends on which vaccine we are taking.
Okay. So the next question about common side effects and reactions to the vaccines. I will start off because I took the Moderna's vaccine in a phase 3 trial. And as my personal experience that I want to share with everyone, our viewers and readers, after the second shot, I had a fever of 102, headache, body ache, etc. My wife also participated in the trial, but she did not have any reaction. So we are assuming that maybe I received the actual vaccine versus in her case, maybe she received the placebo. But then what are the common side effects or reactions that you have heard of?
Yeah, so as you said, it is possible that your wife may have received placebo instead of vaccine, but that's just our assumption because not everybody can develop these allergic reactions to these vaccines.
Right.
So, almost half of the recipients of these vaccines did not experience any type of symptoms, and other half did experience mild to moderate symptoms or some of the systemic symptoms. So the common local reaction that most of the recipients who experienced and reported symptoms, that included pain at the injection site, which is usually within 7 days of the first dose. And, that actually happened across all the age group. The systemic reactions that most of the people reported were fatigue, headache, fever, 38 degrees centigrade and above, muscle aches. Those are the common systemic symptoms, and those were mainly reported by younger individuals after the second dose. And so they were reported as much as like in 50% of the recipients. It was noted that those recipients had some kind of systemic reaction. But however, I think it is worth mentioning that the incidence of developing the serious side effects is extremely low.
Right.
After vaccination, and this should not prevent you from getting the vaccine. And I wanted to really emphasize that the benefit of receiving the vaccine and the protection that it would provide against contracting the serious COVID-19 infection or death far outweighs the risk of any potential side effects that you can have from the vaccine. So I strongly encourage people to get vaccinated as soon as it's available to them.
Absolutely, I totally agree. So do we know, Doc, what is the cost of the vaccine and who will be paying for the vaccine?
So from my understanding, the government is going to bear most of the cost. So whatever is the cost of the vaccine, government and leftover cost will be covered by the insurance.
Right.
So there won't be any out-of-pocket cost, and it should be free to public, as far as I know.
Very good, thank you. I want to thank our readers and viewers for sending in all these questions. If I recover, somebody asked a question, if I recover from COVID-19, do I still need to take the vaccine?
Yes. So, even if you have recovered from COVID-19 infection, it would be beneficial to take the vaccine. There are several reasons. The first thing is that we don't know how long the immunity from this natural COVID-19 infection lasts. It may be 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, because there are documented cases of reinfection among people who have already recovered from COVID-19. So the reinfection can happen. The third thing is that during these clinical trials on these vaccines, patients with prior infection with COVID-19 were excluded. So we don't have enough data on those patient population. And it is therefore assumed that it's better to be safe than sorry and take the vaccine. And FDA also strongly urge the people with COVID-19 infection who have recovered to get the vaccine.
Yeah, right. So after I receive the 2 doses of the vaccine,
Mhm.
do I still need to wear a mask, avoid close contact with other people?
Yes. So even if we have received 2 doses of vaccine, we still need to wear a mask and avoid close contact with others and practice other common public health measures, because this needs to be continued until we have adequate herd immunity by vaccinating at least 75 to 80% of the population. And because we currently do not have enough data suggesting how long the immunity will last after vaccination, it's possible that even after your first or second dose, you may still get an infection.
Yeah.
And it takes time for the body to develop this immunity. So we don't want to take any chance, and we want to allow for majority of the population to be vaccinated before we slowly wean these kind of public health practices. And I often give an example of Swiss cheese theory to my patients, where just one intervention such as vaccination by itself will not achieve the desired outcome of ending this pandemic. What needs to be done is that it will need multiple layers of intervention, such as masking, social distancing, together with the vaccination to achieve the desired outcome. So we need to remember these kind of examples, and we should not let our guard down and continue to do the social distancing and mask wearing even after vaccination.
Right, I agree, absolutely. If I have a reaction to the vaccine, how do I report it?
So I would report it to your primary care physician or employee health if you are a healthcare worker.
Right.
So yeah, I would reach out to your healthcare provider as soon as possible.
How can we be sure that this COVID-19 vaccine is safe?
So COVID-19 vaccines have been developed under strict and stringent safety protocols. There no safety corners have been cut. The safety data that we have is quite convincing, which we can see from the peer-reviewed journals and the FDA document that has been published. All the top scientists and physicians have reviewed this data, and they can vouch for it. So I would not have any doubt or concern about safety of this vaccine. The speed at which this vaccine has been developed reflects the advancement of science. It is not at the compromise of the safety.
Right.
And I can assure you that as soon as the vaccine is available to me, I'll be the first person to take it.
Okay, so if I am vaccinated, can I still contract the infection and then transmit it to the other people?
So yeah, this is a very good question because as we already discussed, that it takes time for the body to develop the immunity, and we don't know how long the immunity after the vaccination lasts. So even if you are vaccinated, it is still possible that you can contract infection and transmit to others after receiving the vaccine. We don't know how significant it is, like how severe the infection is, whether it's going to be mild asymptomatic carrier or a clinical infection. But the probability of this happening will be low, in my opinion, as we can see from Moderna data, where it demonstrated that the transmission to others after vaccinated was cut down to at least 2/3 compared to placebo group. So I hope that we don't have this data for Pfizer vaccine, but I hope that it is same case for Pfizer also. But that doesn't mean that infection or transmission to others cannot happen even after vaccination. So we have to be very vigilant about this. And based on the data we have so far, we can conclude that our chances of getting serious COVID-19 infection or dying from COVID-19 after vaccination will be drastically reduced to almost zero.
Right.
From whatever data we have available. So we just don't know with that, how significant it is, and we still need to wait for more data and time.
Sure.
That will tell us like what exactly will happen.
Yeah, yeah. So after taking the vaccine, how long will the immunity last?
So this is another thing that we don't know, because we have not, so our phase 3 clinical trial participants, they started getting vaccinated, starting from March, April. And we, as far as I know, we have hardly any recipients who had infection from COVID-19 in the vaccine group. And it is possible that after the immunity fades up, then our body may catch the infection again. But we don't know the duration or time frame for which this vaccine protects our or develops the immunity against this virus. So I think we just have to wait and find out.
If someone have allergies and if they are taking different medications, should they take the vaccine?
Yeah, so history of allergic reaction, especially when it is mild, should not exclude them from taking the vaccine, because we always look at the risk versus benefits of any intervention. So I would rather have mild allergic reactions, instead of excluding myself from taking the vaccine and taking a chance of getting serious COVID-19 infection or dying from the disease. So I would strongly encourage that even if you have any allergic reactions, there are other medications available. You can always, take Pepcid or Benadryl or even sometimes epinephrine if it is serious allergic reaction. But I would strongly encourage that, we should continue to pursue this vaccination.
Yeah. And the last question is, what age group is this vaccine suitable for?
So the data from Pfizer is only for 16 years and above. And I think Moderna has excluded patients from 18 years and below. So, FDA is still evaluating the data, but from what I understand, this data, the FDA has only approved this vaccine, both Pfizer and Moderna, for 16 years and above age group. Especially Moderna is going to be 18 years and above. So we still need to wait about the FDA approval decision for tomorrow.
Yeah. So Dr. Darshan, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. We had few questions from our viewers and readers, and few answers, and then we will continue, be happy to answer these questions. And on behalf of Dr. Darshan and myself, I want